back on Ayin Ches said that if it's hide, then it's enough to make a kameya. The chsustus, that was a type of parchment. This was in parentheses. It says to write a mezuzah. When it said klaf, it said to write a small portion of tefillin, which is Shema Yisrael. So now we learn on the top of Ayin Tes, we learn klaf k'dei lichtav parsha ketana, which means the Shema Yisrael. So that's the amount. It's a small portion, a small piece of parchment that you wish, if you're able to fit the Shema Yisrael on it, that's considered a significant piece of parchment. The Gemara has a question. Ramino, there's a contradiction here. It says in a brisa, klaf v'dechsustas k'dei lichtav alav mezuzah. Now, a mezuzah has in it two sections of the Torah. It has Shema and V'hayim Shemaya. Now, the brisa says that to carry a piece of parchment, in order to be chayav, it needs to be large enough that you can write a mezuzah on it. And it uses both types of parchment, klaf and dechsustas. Taisus over here says that klaf is if you take the parchment, you split it in half. So the outer part of the parchment is klaf. The inner part of the parchment is called dechsustas. Taisus actually says, he quotes Rabbi Natam, that in Greek, flesh is called sustas. So and duch means place. So it's the place of the flesh. It means it's the inner, what is that? The dermis and epidermis. It's the inner part of the skin is the cystus, the cystus. So we said that the klaf in the Mishnah, we said the outer part of the skin, that gets the tefillin on it. That's the Shema Yisrael. Now we have a brisa that says klaf and tefillin is a mezuzah. The mezuzah is Shema and V'hayim Shemaya. It means you just increased the shear of klaf, which means you gave us a lenient opinion about klaf. The Gemara answers no. When we said mezuzah, my mezuzah, what did we mean mezuzah? Mezuzah shebet tefillin. It's a mezuzah that's in the tefillin. This is very strange because mezuzah means a doorpost. It doesn't mean a piece of parchment. So I saw the quote from the Ritva that he says mezuzah is using the word genuza. And it says mezuzah, but it's using it as under a different term, under a different meaning. And it means that it's concealed because the tefillin covers it up. The katzitza, which is the bias of the tefillin, is covering the scroll that's inside. The karlu tefillin mezuzah. Do they really do that? They call the tefillin mezuzah. The Gemara says they do. Take a look. But Tanya, we have a brisa. Ritzuis tefillin im hatefillin mitamas yadayim. It's talking about truma. You weren't supposed to put your food together with svarim. In order to encourage you not to keep your food with svarim, they said that svarim makes the food tameh. Why shouldn't you keep your food with svarim? Well, truma was a holy food. They said, let's put the food together with the holy books, the holy scrolls. The problem was that the mice would come and eat the food. They'd eat the books too. So they discouraged you from keeping your truma food in your svarim shafers. So they said that the svarim make your food tummy. So it makes the hands tummy. Ritzuos, what about the straps of the tefillin? When they're attached to the tefillin, they make the hands tummy. But what about b'fnei atzman? Ein metamas asiyadayim. It doesn't make the hands tummy. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Aimer Mishum Reb Shimon, son of Yehuda, says in the name of Reb Shimon, I guess that's Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Hanegea b'ritzua tar. Someone touches a ritzua, he's tar achiga b'katzitza, even if it's attached. The straps don't make the hands tummy. It's only the katzitza itself. Not like the first opinion that said it depends if it's attached. Even if it is attached, You have to actually touch the k'tzitza. K'tzitza is the term for the box. Reb Zakkai Mishma Reb Zakkai, in his name, I guess the name of Reb Shimon, says Torah Chiga b'mezuzah. Even the k'tzitza doesn't make him tamei unless he touches the actual scroll. Well, we've just seen that the scroll is called a mezuzah, even though it's not a mezuzah. So that's what it could mean before when we said that klaf and duchsustus, the size, is in order to write a mezuzah. We don't actually mean a mezuzah that goes on the house. We mean a mezuzah that goes in the tefillin, which is the parsha of Shema. Remember one of my Rivtzaimritz, as a bacher, there was a Judaica store this older couple had. And it was in this Judaica store, they just had like Kiddush cups and Seder plates, and they had like mezuzah necklaces, you know. So this older couple, they told us that this mezuzah is glatt kosher, and this one is not glatt kosher. The Bachim, we wanted to say, you know, glatt kosher is used. They said, no, it's from Israel. They had a... So anyway, it could have been a tefillin scroll for all we know, and it's called a mezuzah. Okay, so we're seeing that the tefillin scroll could have been called, could be called a mezuzah. What's the difference? The difference is how to explain this brisa on the size of klaf. That if someone carries klaf, parchment, on Shabbos, the size of the Shema Yisrael would be enough to be chayav. The problem is that if you look at the Seifa of the Mishnah, it says klaf k'dei lichtav alav parsha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. Michlal, that implies that when you're carrying klaf, then it's the size of Shema Yisrael. But that implies the reisha b'mezuzah atzma skinan. That originally it's talking about mezuzah itself. Now, from here it's mashma that, if you turn a page back, that the parentheses is part of the Gemara's version of the Mishnah. D'chsustas k'dei lichtav mezuzah. Klaf k'dei lichtav parsha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. If the parentheses is part of the Mishnah, the Gemara is so clear that mezuzah is one thing, and the klaf is the parsha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. Obviously, the chsustus is mezuzah is not the parsha ketana. It's so clear that there's two different things here. There's mezuzah and there's parsha ketana. Mezuzah must mean a real mezuzah. Mechlal duration mezuzah atzma skina. The Gemara says, okay, let's go back to the brisa and let's read it like this. Hachiktani. Klaf d'chsustus shiurin b'kama. What is the measurement of carrying parchment? Whether it's the outer part of the parchment, outer part of the hide, or the inner part of the hide. T'chsustus, we say like this. T'chsustus, if it's the inside of the parchment, k'dei lichtav alav mezuzah. That's a mezuzah. Klaf, k'dei lichtav alav parsha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. But klaf is different. Klaf is in order to write the size that you write Shema Yisrael. Now, what are we doing to the brisa? We said klaf v'dechsasas k'dei lichtav alav mezuzah. I guess we're dividing up the brisa and we're saying that it means something else. From the end of the Gemara, it sounds like the version of the Mishnah is not exactly the way we have it. Because why do I need the Gemara to say what the Mishnah says clearly? The Mishnah says, so then what was the Gemara's question before? Amidiktani Seifa, it sounds like it does have it. Now, maybe the Gemara doesn't have the parentheses. The Gemara doesn't have the parentheses. So all we have is klaf k'dei lichtav parsha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. from the fact that it spells it out and specifies Parsha Ketana Shebetfilin Shishma Yisrael, that means that if it says mezuzah, it means a real mezuzah, not just the Parsha Ketana Shebetfilin. Then the Gemara continues and says, so what's the pshat in the brisa? The pshat in the brisa is that klaf has one share and the chsustus has another share. Tosfos also clarifies here that when you write on the parchment, you have two parts to the parchment. You have this side, which is where the hair of the animal grows, and this is the inside. This would be the flesh, and then I divide it in half. So this is the klaf, and this is the chsustus. I write on the klaf on this side, not the hairy side, on the inside, and I write on the chsustus on this side. So both of them are away from the. This is away from. I don't write on the hair side. I don't write on the flesh side. I write in as it's split in the middle. But then Tosfos mentions that our klaf, we do it different. We use different types of tanning things and we would just have we would just have one. Okay. Klafim shalanu yeshlam din klaf. What do we do with ours? Where we don't split the hide into two.
Right.
So we write on.
Just stretch it, and we run on the inside, but we thin it, pull it, and stretch it, and clean it. So it's on the klaf side.
It's as if it's klaf.
It's as if exactly.
I saw a Svardish of Sefer Torah. They write on gvil, the thick brown leather, much different. Not like our thin. Ours is thin like paper. This was thick like a shoe leather. It was. Okay, I guess that gets tough for Hagbah. Okay, now we're starting Amar Rav. There were two dots in my Gemara. There's two dots here. Rav says, "The chsustas harei keklaf." The chsustas has a din of klaf. Okay, we're discussing the parchments. We say that the inside parchment has the same din as the outside parchment. Now, as we're going to see in the Gemara, Rav didn't say the next part of this. This is like the students or the Gemara is discussing what Rav means. Maklav kaisvin of tefillin, after chsustas kaisvin of tefillin. It must mean that just like the klaf is used for tefillin, you can use the chsustas for tefillin as well. It means you can use either side for tefillin, according to Rav. That was not what we saw from the Mishnah. You see, why did we say that carrying klaf is the size that you would write a small portion of tefillin? Because that's what you use for tefillin, so that's considered significant. Why do we say the chsustas is mezuzah? Because that's what you would use for mezuzah. That's the significant amount. So now, according to Rav, we're going to ask a question. If you can use the chsustas for tefillin, then why is the measurement different? It should be the same shear. The Gemara asks, Tanan was taught in a Mishnah, Klaf, k'dei licht of Parshas Ketana Shebetfilin Shishma Yisrael. Klaf in the chsustas lai. It's clear that it didn't have, if this parenthesis is accurate, then it didn't have that parenthesis in the Mishnah. You see, only klaf, only the outside parchment is the size to write Shema Yisrael, but not the chsustas. What is Rav saying that you can write it on both? The Gemara answers the mitzvah. No. Just because you can write the tefillin on the chsustas doesn't mean that's what people do. See, Hilchas Shabbos is different than Hilchas Stam. Technically, your tefillin is kosher if you write it on the chsustas. But since no one does it, so that's not considered carrying on Shabbos if you carry a small piece of the chsustas. You need it to be what would be a normal way of carrying, a normal size for people to do. Why wouldn't people do it? Because that's not the Iker Mitzvah. The best way of writing tefillin is to write it on klaf, not on the chsustas, even though according to Rav it's kosher. And so therefore, that small piece of the chsustas, the size of Shema Yisrael, is not considered carrying. Technically, in Hilchas Stam, it's kosher, but not in Hilchas Shabbos, it's not considered carrying. Toshima, come and listen. Halacha l'meishem Sinai, tefillin ala klaf, mezuzah ala d'chsustas. We have halacha l'meishem Sinai. Tefillin is written on the klaf. This is a tradition from Moshe, an oral tradition. And mezuzah is written on the chsustas, the inner part of the parchment. Klaf b'makom basar, the chsustas b'makom seir. Here we're seeing that distinction. The klaf, you write it on the inside, and the chsustas, you write it on the outside. The term for outside is the hair side, even though there's no hair on the chsustas, but that's it says, the outside. And there's no flesh on the klaf, but that's what he calls it, the inside. So you write them both on that inner part. But you see very clearly that you don't write tefillin on the chsustas. It's a kashan rav. The Gemara says la mitzvah. That's just telling me the ikar mitzvah, the mitzvah min hamuvcher. It's not telling me b'diavad. Okay. V'hatanya, 1 second. You're telling me there's a difference between lechatchila and b'diavad. Lechatchila tefillin is only on klaf. V'hatanya shina pasel. It says that if you do it differently, they have a brisa that says that it's pasel. Rav said that it's kosher. He said on mezuzah. Mezuzah cannot be on klaf. But klaf could be on, mezuzah cannot be on klaf. But tefillin could be on d'chsustas. So in other words, mezuzah is usually written on the d'chsustas, which is the inner parchment. And tefillin is written usually on the outer one. Tefillin, if you write it on the inner one, it's still kosher. But the mezuzah, if you write it on the outer one, it's pasel. But Tanya Shina b'zeh pasel. No, you're trying to answer up, but we're like pushing it into a corner. Now you can't escape. We said that if you switch this one or that one, it's pasel. Klaf, tefillin needs to be on klaf. Mezuzah needs to be on the chsustas. The Gemara says idivida on mezuzah. When we said Shina b'zeh pasel, we're talking about mezuzah. How is it possible? Both mezuzah. The mezuzah is only one. It's written on the chsustas. If you change it, you write it on the klaf. It's pasel. What do you mean b'zeh? The Gemara explains. V'ada kasvino aklaf makom seir. It's talking about if you wrote it on the klaf on the wrong side. Inami ad chsustas makom basar, or you wrote it on the chsustas on the wrong side. That's where it's pasel. So shina b'zeh doesn't mean that you used. It's pasel if you use the wrong material. It's actually kosher if you use the wrong material. It's pasel if you use the wrong material, or even if you use the right material, but you write it on the not appropriate side to write it on. Now, once we do this, and we say that it's not a problem to write mezuzah on klaf as long as you use it on the right side, then we could have done the same thing and said, no, idi v'idi at tefillin. And it's the same issue. And Taisha says, yeah, you're right. We could have done that as well. We chose it like this. Who didn't have Muslim idi v'idi at tefillin? Taisha says on the first line of the wide lines of Taisha. Okay. We're up to Iba Yasema. Another teretz to this problem of Shina b'zeh, that if you switch the klaf or the chsustas, it's pasel. Another teretz could be that's tanaihi, that there's actually machlekes tanaim in Rav that says that it's kosher, that if you write tefillin on the chsustas, it's kosher. It's machlekes tanaim. Goes like this. Tanai, the Tanya was taught in the Brisa, Shina b'zeh pasel, that if you switch, you write klaf, you write tefillin on the chsustas and mezuzah on klaf, it's pasel. Ravacha machsher, Ravacha says it's kosher mishum Rabacha bar Chanina, in the name of Ravacha bar Chanina, or v'amrila mishum Rabbi Yaakov bar Chanina, or in the name of Rabbi Yaakov bar Chanina. Some say that it's kosher. Tefillin on the chsustas is kosher. We have a source. And Rav can go like that source. It's very interesting what the Gemara is doing here. First of all, the brisa that we're quoting, the names of it seem like Amiraim. Ravacha, Machsher, Ravacha Bar Chanina, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Chanina. I'm not familiar with those Tanaim. And Rav is anyways Tano Palig. I don't need to. You're telling me that there's another source for Rav. It's very interesting. That's what the Gemara is doing. Okay. Rav Papa says, Rav Damar Ketana de Bei Menashe. Rav is going like what they taught in the yeshiva of Menashe. The Tana Bei Menashe was taught in this yeshiva, Kosval and Niyar, if you wrote, dealing with tefillin here. We're going to see in a moment what we're discussing. If you wrote it on Niyar, which is paper, Rashi says from grass, which I guess means papyrus, unless they had other grasses that they would glue together. V'alamatles, or on a cloth, shmata paper. Psula, it's puzzle. Ala klaf, ala gvil, val d'chsustus, it's ksheira. On all of those, it's kosher. Kasvamai, what are you talking about when you say you wrote it? What's the it? Wrote what? Eily mezuzah. Are you talking about that we wrote a mezuzah and it's okay? On paper, it's no good. On cloth, it's no good. But on the three types of parchment, klaf, gvil, and d'chsustus. Klaf is the outer one. Gvil is the full, is both together. And d'chsustus is the inner one. It's kosher. If you're talking about a mezuzah, ilema mezuzah klaf mikasvina, are you allowed to write mezuzah on klaf? We said shina is possible. Mezuzah needs to be on d'chsustus. Elalav tefillin. Must be talking about tefillin. And tefillin is kosher on both. It's a raya to Rav. It's very good. The Gemara says, 1 second. Ol tamich tefillin agvil mikasvinan. But are you allowed to write tefillin on gvil? Who you said? Rav only said that you can write tefillin on klaf and d'chsustus, but not on gvil. Gvil is both parchments together. It's thicker. We never had that. So the Gemara answers, Ela kitani b'sefer Torah. It's talking about a sefer Torah. Sefer Torah you can write on klaf, you can write it on gvil, you can write it on d'chsustus. Leben Messiah. Let's bring a raya to Rav. We're going back now, back to the opinion of Rav that said that you can write on tefillin on klaf or d'chsustus. Rav didn't actually say tefillin. Rav said that klaf and d'chsustus have the same din. We thought he's referring to tefillin. If you can write tefillin on klaf, you can also write it on d'chsustus. So, Kayetzibai, similar to it, tefillin shabalo, the sefer Torah shabala. Tefillin that got worn out, or a sefer Torah that got worn out. Ein oisimem mezuzah, you can't turn it into a mezuzah. V'shein meridim miktusha chamura lektusha kala. How would you turn it into a mezuzah anyway? Well, you can take that section of the sefer Torah and you cut it out. The problem is that Shema and Vayim Shema are not right next to each other. So how do you get it into a? I don't know if you can sew it into one piece. I'm not sure if you can sew it to a mezuzah that's sewn, if it's kosher. But the suggestion that Tosfos gives is that if the way that it was written leaves the margin of Shema at the end of the page, or it leaves the margin of Hayim Shema at the top of the page, then I can just cut out one of those pieces and fill in the bottom or fill in the top because of the margin.
Why can't it just simply mean using the klaf on top or the bottom of the sefer, which was not written? So you're now using the klaf itself to write the full parshas. But because the klaf has a kedusha yasera when you wrote a sefer Torah on it, so you cannot use the klaf, the empty space on top of the ksav of a sefer Torah.
Uh-huh.
That's what I thought it always meant. Actually using the I mean, it could be also meaning the parsha shema, but I'm saying just using the klaf itself.
I'm not sure.
We've had Shiloh's coming.
Taisus doesn't offer that suggestion. He offers a different suggestion. I would have to look in the other Rishonim to see what they say. It's a reasonable pshat what you're suggesting.
We've even asked if you sometimes the Sefer Torah people go ahead and trim the tops and the bottom if it was ripped. So you get extra strips. So can you use it even just for matlacing, and even that had shilos. So to say, let alone to use it for something else.
I have to look into that. I forget. If all we have is this page with this taisvus, like without other Rishonim and discussing, I'd bring a raya from this taisvus that there's no problem to use the margin of the Sefer Torah for other things. Our whole problem is to take the actual writing of the Sefer Torah and then to use it. That would be.
No, that was zicher. What you're saying is that that's obvious. That's the pshat. I'm saying, but in addition, even the top can also.
I'm saying because Tosfos has to come and give me this answer. Tosfos' question is, Shema and V'hayim Shmaya are two different parshas. So how are you going to make a mezuzah out of this? Shema and V'hayim Shmaya, the two different locations. So this heavy guy, he buys two airline tickets because he doesn't want to sit squished, but they give him one in the front and one in the back. It's not going to help him. Two seats, right? So the Shema and V'hayim Shema it's not together in the same parsha. So Taisus answers, it's on the top of the page. V'hayim Shemaya. So you write Shema above it in the margin. Taisus could have answered different. I'm just using the margin. It's a raya that for Taisus that wasn't the issue. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Why can't I use the Sefer Torah to be now a mezuzah? It's an old Sefer Torah. Let's just use it. It says no, because Sefer Torah is holier than a mezuzah, and you're not supposed to lower something's holiness level, even though it's a good thing. But it's not as holy as it was before. Taima, what's the reason? The ein meridin, because we don't lower it from one holiness level to another holiness level, from a Sefer Torah to a mezuzah. Ha meridin, but if you could lower it, Eisen, then it's not a problem. Diksiva amai, but what did you write it on? What was the original material here? That's our discussion. Lav diksiva dechsustas. It must be that you wrote it on dechsustas. Well, so that would be good for a mezuzah. But would it be good for tefillin? No. Tefillin Shabbalah with Sefer Torah Shabbalah. Oh, that's a raya that the tefillin was written on dechsustas. Because we're taking tefillin and we're going to use it for a mezuzah. Or a Sefer Torah, you're going to use it for a mezuzah. That means tefillin could have been written on dechsustas. The Gemara says, like, diksiva klaf. It was written on klaf. Mezuzah klaf mikasvinan. So where do you get that option from? That you're going to take tefillin and you're going to turn it into a mezuzah if it's written on klaf. You can't write mezuzah on klaf. The Gemara says you can. We have a brisa that says tefillin can't be written on a klaf. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Reb Meir. It's the opinion of Reb Meir. By the way, Reb Meir was a sefer that says kaisva ala klaf. You're allowed to write a mezuzah on klaf because it lasts longer. Where it says, mezuzah could be written on klaf according to Reb Meir. Hashtadasas lahachi. Once we have this pshat that mezuzah could be written on dechsustas or klaf, l'rav nami leitem dechsustas or klaf, leim klaf or dechsustas. Say that klaf is like dechsustas. We're not talking about tefillin being written on dechsustas. What we mean is madach sustas kaisim lav mezuzah, klaf kaisim lav mezuzah. We didn't understand what Rav was saying. Rav was saying that mezuzah could be written on both klaf and sustas. That's Reb Meir's opinion, and Rav is following Reb Meir. So when we started this Gemara, I mentioned that Rav says sustas or klaf, but the Gemara was commenting on that what is the significance that tefillin could be written both on klaf and sustas. The Gemara now switches. What it means is that mezuzah could be written on both sustas and klaf, because that's the opinion of Reb Meir, and Rav follows that opinion. Okay. We're up to a new section of the Gemara. It's talking about ink. How much ink is considered carrying? So we said enough ink to write 2 letters, right? To write 2 letters. Why 2 letters? We learned from Rashi that if you were writing on a board or something and you wanted to put the boards together, so you could put a letter here, a letter there, it would be matching. That's what they did in the Mishkan. They made sure that the krushim, the boards of the Mishkan, were in the same location every time they set it up, even though they were exactly the same. But nevertheless, the ones that were on the east should stay on the east. The ones on the west should stay on the west. That was the holier side. It's a raya that the location, there's locations that are holier. They bring from this raya, by the way, that your talis, tzitzis, the front is holier than the back. The raya from the krushim, the poskim bring this raya. That's why
you can only wear scissors one way with the tag in the back.
That's why you should stick to one way. You should stick to one way, whichever way it is. Tag in the back is what our custom.
That's what I learned, yeah.
That's what we do because that's what our other clothing is like.
So it's
but
for
it doesn't.
because the front is.
According to this, I forget what it is. Mordechai. They bring a raya. I think it's in Hilchos Chanukah also. Something about the menorah. But anyway, that's the original reason for the atara, to show you where the front is, the crown on the talus. And even Chabad, that doesn't have a atara, we still have something that shows us what the front is. Okay, so whatever the case is, they were right on the krushim. So Tana shtei yoisius b'diyai, shtei yoisius b'kolma, shtei yoisius b'kalmarin, kalmarin. How are you carrying the ink? So it could be that it's dried ink and you have to moisten it, but it doesn't matter. There's enough dried ink there that you could turn into 2 letters, or it's two letters worth of ink that's actually in the pen itself, in the quill, because you dip the quill in the ink well. It absorbs, because it's hollow, it absorbs the ink, and then you can write. So if you dip it in deep enough, you can get 2 letters out of it. You can probably write half a line in some cases. But depends on several factors there.
If you're carrying the quill, then you're carrying the quill. You don't.
Very good, very good. Nassan. Rashi asks, but what about the quill? You're carrying the quill. So Rashi answers that when you're carrying the quill to hold the ink, then that's like carrying a basket to hold food, and you still need the size of food to be chayav. Otherwise, the basket is bottled to the food. That's not chayav. If you
were carrying a quill with nothing in it, you'd still be chayav.
If you're carrying a quill with nothing in it, you'd be chayav. But now that there's ink in the quill, the ink becomes the yikr. For us, it's easy to buy ink, and it's hard to come by a turkey feather. I think a kulmas is pretty hard to make also. But in those days, a turkey feather was very easy to come by, and ink took a lot of effort. So the ink was the yikr. So the quill was nothing. So you're carrying the quill to carry the ink, the quill becomes bottled to the ink. So if there's a shear of the ink, then you're chayav because of the ink. If there's no shear of the ink, then it's bottled to something that's you're not chayav for. You hear? Yeah, that's Rashi on the third line down. The amrit typically mishum kulmas. You see, nothing. It's tafel lepachas mikashir. Or if you carry this amount of ink in the inkwell, so then you're also going to be chayiv. Boy Rava. Rava has a question. Let's say he's going out with all his different things. He has one letter of dried ink. He has another amount of ink that's inside his quill. He has another amount in his inkwell. What's the din? It says teku. It's not clear if they all combine because it's in different forms. Taisvus points out that if you would have two quills, each one that had one ink, and you carried them both, you'd definitely be chayiv. It's only here where it's in different forms that the Gemara is a shaila. Amar Rava, Rava tells us something interesting. Usually when you're carrying, you have to lift it up and put it down. It's called akira and a hanacha. You lift it in one location, you transfer it to another location, and you put it down. Over here, while you're walking, you wrote the letters and you continued walking. You never put it down. The letters disappeared. The ink disappeared. What are you carrying here? You're carrying ink. The ink disappeared before you had a chance to put it down because while you were walking, you wrote it. So Rava tells us that writing it is considered putting it down even though you were walking. Now, you're chayav, of course, for writing, but you're also chayav for carrying. That's considered a hanacha. The Amar Rava also says, did we discuss if someone eats and he swallows it? Sounds like a Gemara that we may have had. Takes it, if carrying food in his mouth is carrying. Let's say he swallows it while he's walking. It sounds like a similar sort of. Okay, let's say he takes out one letter, which is chatzi shir, because he needs the amount of ink that could write two letters. He takes out one and then he writes it. The problem is when he writes it, it then dries up. And that amount is not the amount that would be able to write one more letter. The dried ink that's written, you won't get another letter out of that ink. It's going to be less than that now. So you now lost part of the shear. And then you go back and you take out another letter. So he's pater. My time, what's the reason? When you take out the other half, you've already consumed. You've lost part of the first one, and you don't have the full share anymore. Interesting piece. Amar Rava. Rava also says, say with food, someone carries out half a dried fig. And then he puts down he carries out another half a dried fig. And it's all in one forgetting. These cases are one forgetting that it's Shabbos, or forgetting that it's Malacha. The first one is if it was caught by a dog. The Gemara says that if someone throws something and the dog catches it, so it's not considered he put it down. Usually you throw something, it lands. But here it doesn't land. The dog catches it and takes it. So that's not considered a hanacha. So here, when he puts it down, it's only half a shear. It's as if a dog caught it. When it says Vamai, what is he saying? A dog? Hamancha. He put it down. It's laying over there. It's not caught by a dog. He put it down. So he did half a shear. He did another half a shear. That should be mitzdaref. When it says Hachikamer, no, that's not the case. The case is in Kodam Igbir Rishena Kodam Anachashniya Nasas Rishena Kamishiniklatay Nisrafel Pater. You lifted the other one up. So the effect of the malacha was never a full shear in one shot. You did a maisa malacha of a full shear, but the accomplishment of the malacha never took effect, because by the time you put the second half of the shear down, you had already removed the first half, and now it's already in motion. There's a whole in Achreinim in Masechta Shabbos. They learn what is Shabbos. Is Shabbos the action? Is it the effect? The Rogatchover used to divide everything into. And he would learn: is it the Pa'ula, or is it the Nifal? Is it the effect, or is it the person? Is it the action, or is it the accomplishment? Where's the problem of Malacha and Shabbos? The person doing it, the act, or what the result of the act? So here we don't have the actual result of the act because it's a combination, of course, of all of them. Okay. Rava says, you take out a half a fig of food and you put it down. Took it out from a private domain to a public domain, and you put it down. Then you go back and you take another half and you carry it over the other one. We're going to see it doesn't mean that it needs to be carrying over it exactly, but you carry it over the other one. So it's chayiv. Now we know that there's a machlekes. If we say kluta kamishahuncha, that flying is as if it's resting in each location. My kids like to say places they've been. So if we had a flight that stopped somewhere, so they count that also. Oh, were we in Dallas? Yeah, we were one time in Dallas. The plane landed in Dallas once.
Didn't we have something with the Tumatara of going over the warning sometime last year, something about going over?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue.
Yeah, like when like a Tommy bird, something like that.
Right. Ayel Perea. We had something about if there's Ayel by when something's flying. But we had at the beginning of Masechta Shabbos. We had.
Dr. Stein said that if you throw Shalach Manas through two windows, you're good.
Dr. Stein, you're getting quoted. Referencing. Okay, very good, Yossi. So, we were talking about if you throw through a window and it goes in the other window, right? So, it's called kluta kamishahuncha. Remember the example? If a bird flies over a pot of boiling milk, if it's milk is inflation. So here he's making it go over. It's a machlekes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan. He's making it go over the other one in traveling over it. So he's chayiv, and each one is only half a shear. The Gemara says Amay halinach, but he didn't put it down. So he says going shavir teich shleisha. So we're talking about, according to the rabbi's opinion, because according to Rabbi Akiva, this would of course be chayiv because kluta kamishoncha. But it says, well, it was so close to the ground, within 3 tvachim of the ground, it's as if it landed. Even according to the rabbis that say that flying is not like landing, it's not like it's landing, it's not like it's stopped. But if it's within 3 tvachim, it is. They say that it still needs to land on something, even though that something is not an area of 4x4 that would make it a makam chashuv. It still has to go, even if it's maybe on top of a stick. It has to stop on something. The Gemara says like kasha, kam bezer, kam b'maver. When did we say it needs to land on something? Even if it's not a 4x4, and the rabbis would agree, if it's in 3 tvachim of the ground, it's considered attached to the ground. That's if you threw it. It needs to land on something. But here, he's holding it in his hand and moving it over. That's considered like it's positioned on top of it, and that's why he's chayiv. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Haitzi chatzi gregus v'chazer v'haitzi chatzi gregus be'alamechad chayiv. V'shtei alam espater. If you carry half a shear, and then you carry another half a shear, with shear is the size of a dried fig, and it's in one forgetting, you're chayiv. Like we said before we gave complications, but the simple thing is, if you carry on Shabbos and it results in carrying a shear, you're chayiv if it's in one forgetting. Rabbi Yossi Yomer behelem echad l'shus echad chayiv l'shtei rishus pater. the result needs to be in that you carried from Rosh Hashanah into the same Rosh Hashanah. If you have two sides to your house, you carry out one door and you put it in Rosh Hashanah, half a share. You carry it to the other side, you put it into Rosh Hashanah on your other side of your house. You know, one side is the 95, the other side is the turnpike. And you walk outside and you put it in the other one. So that's two Rishuyas, two separate Rosh Hashanahs. You're going to be pater according to Rabbi Yossi. Amar Rabbi says, the term that Rabbi is using, there has to be a different rishus in between these two rishuyas. That's a deraisa rishus yachid rishus Rabbi. If you look in this little picture that Rashi has, you see there's a house on one end, a bias. You see in the Rashi, there's a little chart, a little picture. There's a house on one end, there's a house on the other end. You walk into the first house, let's say the house on the top, and you carry into a Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Then you put it down over there. You continue walking and you go to the other house. You go inside that house, and then again you carry out. This is a chronic Shabbos carrier. Every house he goes into, he carries out into Rosh Hashanah. So he carries out of that house into Rosh Hashanah. Now, if you notice, the Rosh Hashanah that's in front of this house, and the Rosh Hashanah that's in front of that house, has either Rosh Hashanah, a Carmelist, or a Pistla in the middle, which we'll see shortly what those are. But that means this Rosh Hashanah is not the same as that Rosh Hashanah. So it's considered, according to Rabbi Yossi, two Rishuyas. Now, Rabbi holds that it's only considered two Rishuyas if there's a Rosh Hashanah in between. That's a clear distinction between those two Rosh Hashanahs. There's a chiyuv chatas between them. Someone would carry from that Rishus that's between the two Rosh Hashanahs, he'd be chayiv chatas. Avol karmeles. But if the area in between those two Rosh Hashanahs is only of rabbinic nature, it could be like a private property that's not walled or something, or something like that. It's a karmeles. It's not a Rosh Hashanah that has 600,000 people between the two. So Abba Karmelis like that's Rabbi's opinion. Abaye has a more stricter opinion, and he'll say you'll be chayav even if you don't have a chayav chatas between them. It's still considered. He'll say it's considered a division of the two rishuyas, and if you take out half a share into each, you'll be exempt. Abaye Amar Fil Karmelis. It's still considered two rishuyas. Avol pistla loy, but if there's just a pistla is like some sort of board, a train track thing, those what are they called? The boards on the tracks. Some sort of piece of wood. That won't be a division. Rava Amar Afilu Pisla. Rava says no. You'll divide the Rishuyas up even with this board. But the Rava Latame, and Rava follows his opinion. What happened was someone wanted to give his wife a get. She wasn't around or whatever, but what he did was, or maybe she didn't want to take it. It was before there was a decree that that she needs to accept it willingly. In the olden days, you could throw it at her and into her. And that would be divorced. Nowadays, he can't do that. She has to accept it willingly. So he wants to put it into her rishus. The problem is he owns the house. So he rents to her or lends her an area of the house. He says that this is your closet of the house. And now anything that I put in it will be acquired by your closet. So he throws it to this closet or whatever, to this area of the house. And it doesn't land in the closet or that area of the house. It lands on a board that's in between. So Rava says that's not considered the area. That's considered a separate rishus. He gave her that one area, the inside of it. He didn't not the board that's separating between those areas. So Rava says that's a different rishus. For Gittin, it's not considered the area that he lent to her. So it's also not considered a separate area for Shabbos. Okay, kol kadei lichol ayin achas. This is a type of eyeshadow, probably a blue eyeshadow that's used. So if you carry enough to paint one eye, so that's chayiv. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna said, I'm sorry, I skipped. Ayin achas alekachli, but one eye wasn't painted. As he walks out with one eye with makeup on half a face, that looks strange. So Amar Rav Huna shkein tznuas koichlas ayin achas. No, we're talking about these modest women. They wear there's even more than a burqa. They cover the whole, one eye is covered, walks out with just one eye exposed. It's very frum. So they only have to paint. It's funny, the frum, and they paint one, and they're putting on makeup on the one eye that's being exposed. So they paint one eye. Okay, whatever the custom was. Rashi's clear that they're covering the other eye. Meisvei, they weren't driving. Meisvei, Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, Kol, he says that if it's imla refuah, kadei l'kalayin achas, imla kashit bebezinayim. It's a problem over here. If it's for medicinal reasons, so then one eye will get painted. That's fine. But if it's for beauty, cosmetics, then you would never do one eye. And here we just said that they would do one eye because it would cover the other ones. The Gemara says, well, Tirgama Hillel, Breder Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Kitan Yehi Beiranias. That's talking about, what's that, Gimel? That's something else. That's talking about people that lived in the village. And they didn't need to be so, in the city, they needed to be more tznius. In the village, they didn't need to be so tznius. So they would go with their eyes exposed in the villages. And so therefore, they would have to paint both of them. But in the cities, they would have to dress more tznius, more modest. And so therefore, they would cover their eye.
How is it modest to paint your eyeball?
Yeah, I don't know that part of it. All I know is that they were only painting one because the other eye was covered. That's the modesty part. So it'd have to cover the whole face, including, I think it's the whole face, including one eye, and they could walk with one eye exposed. Now, why were they putting on cosmetics on that one eye if they're trying to be modest? That's a good question. But look, they want to look good also. Okay.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
see, I actually found a picture of how they went.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't show the whole thing, but the whole head was covered, just one eye exposed.
Wow. Wow, isn't that something? Wow. Okay. These customs, it's clearly from the area. You know, the Muslim countries, probably the Jews dress like that in those countries as well. It has to do with the location, whatever the customs come out.
One day they're going to say back in the early 2000s, everybody wore a mask.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So in the Iranians, people in the villages, they don't have to dress so modest. They were all like, this is like a quarantine. So people just, they're hardly going out. It's not like a city. Okay. Shaifa, the Gemara says, of cotton. Wax is in order to cover over a small hole, a small opening. Tana of cotton shalyain was taught in the Brisa to put on a small opening of a wine jug. Deve kedelitin reisha shafshaf. This was glue to put on top of a trap. Tana kedelitin reisha shafshaf shebreish kana shel tzayden. This was to put on the top of a board that the trappers to trap birds. Zephys v'gafris kedelasis. Here we said tar and pitch was to make a small hole. And Tana kedelasis neck of cotton. It's taught in the Brisa, large enough to make a small hole. Why do I need the Brisa? The Mishnah says, kedelasis nekev. The Brisa says nekev cotton. Okay. Chars is kedelasis pikor. We said that if there's clay that was to make the opening of the bellows that would attach to the crucible, to the hot pot. L'meimra the shir de Rabbi Yehuda Nafesh. Rabbi Yehuda gave a different measurement. Rabbi Yehuda's measurement was to make a tripod, to make a stand for the thing. That's much larger. Rabbi Yehuda all of a sudden has a larger measurement. It was never like that. Rabbi Yehuda's measurements are always smaller, the Gemara is asking. I'm sorry. Remember the shir der Rabbi Nafesh? Hakaimelan der shir der Rabbana Nafesh. The rabbi's measurements are always larger. And when we spoke about a reed, Rabbi Yehuda's measurement was to measure the size of a shoe for a child, which that was smaller than the rabbi's measurement of a reed. The rabbi's measurement of the reed was to make a loop that would to be able to hang something. So the Gemara says, it's not to make the tripod, it's to fix the tripod of this pot.
That's a pit put.
Is this base to hold a hot crucible that they use to smelt the.
I thought pit put meant shatter.
Right. We had it. Yeah. Regel Moshev Akur. It's the leg. Rashi says Kagoin trapade, which I think means tripod.
Tripod, yeah.
Okay, Subin Kadelit Nalpi Korshal Surfizov. This is the Brian was used to cover over this connection to the people that would the goldsmiths. Okay, we'll leave it over here.